Hi everybody, welcome to Control Alt and Compete. Today we're joined by lovely Dr. Amanda Ford.
Hi there.
So doctor,
Yes.
how does it feel like people asking you if you're a doctor? Do they say, if you're a doctor, can you help me? Or do you have to explain what you're a doctor in?
I have had to say to one or two folk that I'm not a medical doctor as such. And yeah, I have to explain that, you know, my PhD is actually, it's in games. So I like to kind of consider myself a doctor of games, as it was.
So really then, when you think about it, everybody thinks a doctor, but really it just means that they've got to have a kind of high level of the profession then.
Yeah, yeah, it's all about the knowledge and sort of research. And I spent a good couple of years looking at teaching kids basically how to make games, that sort of side of thing. I went down that route.
And how many people actually take it to that level, becoming a doctor then? You don't have to give me like, okay.
Not a lot, I wouldn't say. So like when I left uni, there was probably about 30 of us actually left honours year, and 3 of us went on to do further studies, PhDs.
And so what's after a doctor then?
That's essentially it. That's the highest you can go.
You can go.
You can do another, because I know a couple other folk, you know, are actually doing like another PhD, but they're keen.
They're keen. And would you say have you always wanted to like take your profession? So what doctor and what then? Explain what you do then, Amanda.
So my sort of PhD was based around, my degree was in computing, and it was called the Computing and Interactive Multimedia at the time. But essentially those units were games units. And then for my honours project, I wanted to teach kids how to program, because my kids at that time were in school and they weren't really getting anything computing, so I got involved that way. I then took that further into the PhD and looked at the games side of things, and how can we get this into schools. At that time it was 2010, and there'd been a lot of work done before with sort of Education Scotland and getting kind of consoles into games, but I'm more a believer of, you know, creating rather than consuming at the time, and that was how I actually got kind of through that, and I've worked with about 400 kids over a couple of years.
And do you find that like the gaming is the one thing that really hooks them and they can learn from? Do you think that's what captures their imagination?
Definitely does, yes. Especially, you know, you get them working together as well. But when you talk about games, you know, they've all got something. Everybody's a gamer. Yeah. You'll ask people and they'll say, I'm not a gamer. Everybody's a gamer, doesn't matter.
Cool.
Doesn't matter if you play Wordle every day, you're still a gamer. There's different
We've always
levels.
done it. Tossing the keyboard, you think back, marbles, whatever it may be, we've always been competitive.
There's games of some sort, yeah. So getting kids but getting them to learn from it as well, that was kind of the important thing. Well, not maybe the realising that they're actually learning from.
So you must have been on that quite. Everybody talks about gamification now, right? And I think you must have been on that quite early then.
Yes.
Do you think, what were the kind of roadblocks of people when you try to explain to them that you don't have to have a belt or a whip to teach kids, you can actually do it through fun and things they enjoy? You know, where do you think the kind of shift went?
Technology, because back in 2010, technology in schools was dire. I mean, it still is, if I'm honest.
I had the floppy disk at my prime. I don't know offence to my high school, but I had the floppy disk and paint.
We had, I mean, the school the school that I was in only had 9 PCs.
Right.
Small school, but they still only had 9 PCs. And teacher knowledge as well. In the primary school, the curriculum's overloaded as it is. But gaming was actually kind of put into the primary curriculum through coding, computing. And so a lot of teachers were they didn't know what to do. And I seen that as a chance to actually say, well, actually, it's not as scary as you think, because you're already doing a lot of these things anyway. The problem solving, the art side of things, you're doing it. It's just putting everything together. And
do you think that was what kind of was a roadblock as well, the unknown and people getting scared of it and the perception of it initially?
Definitely.
It's always the case, isn't it?
It's too many. I mean, I've seen you've got games, but I've seen the same happening with AI now as well. You've got that kind of, it's the unknown, therefore it's scary and it's bad. And games notoriously has always got a bad reputation anyway in the media. It's always portrayed as, you know, it's bad for kids, and so trying to turn that around and sell that as well.
So in a sense, what have you had that's maybe any good success stories that you've had that you could say with kids that you've seen that gaming's helped them? Like, have you got any, you don't have to say names, but if there's any stories that stick out to you?
I think when I was in actually my daughter's school, there were a couple of kids and they loved coming to the coding sort of sessions that I ran, and it was during class time. The issue was that, so they sat, they behaved, all that sort. The issue was it was used as a carrot, and if they did not behave during that week, they get removed from the lesson, which I didn't think was fair because they were learning. And to take the learning away from that side of things wasn't fair on the child because they were loving that sort of thing. So
things have just changed. I mean, I think I was born in 1980, but I think that's just when corporal punishment, we really call it. Sorry.
It stopped. Yeah, because I'm just a couple of years before it, so we missed it. We missed that.
So in a sense, the way things were taught were a lot different. The fear, the threat to get taught. So, and I suppose everything's exploded and everything's changed at the one time. And I suppose do you think we're still finding our feet?
I think so, although I call it now the sort of a curriculum for excellence generation because there's a difference now.
Explain what do you mean?
I've
heard that a lot.
So the way that curriculum for excellence was brought in.
Did you make that up?
No.
Okay.
That was brought in, obviously, the government in 2010. That was when it kind of brought in. And it led to a lot of, there was a bit of uproar as to, what teachers were doing, things like that. And I've seen it, especially so my youngest is 20 now. And I've heard a lot of teachers say this as well, that things like behaviour and stuff like that from that sort of generation was a lot different from like my oldest, who's 8 years older than her. They were kind of, classes were better behaved and stuff, but behaviour seems to be a sort of a...
And do you think there was less distraction then? Because I suppose, if you think about it now with mobile phones in schools, that must be a big issue. Not one, as kids even can afford it, is it the new kind of cool trainers, you've not got a mobile, we've got a mobile, not everyone can have one. I know that government are making sure they can all have a tablet now in school, which should be quite good. That can even things out a bit. Yeah,
I think that helped. So the oldest, she's 28. Her sort of generation going into school, they were, by the time they were in primary 7, they were starting to get things like Facebook, stuff like that. So it was still happening then. But social media, it just wasn't as prevalent as what it is. You've got everything now, TikTok, Snapchat. There's a lot more.
Do you think social media is changing our behaviour? I think so. I'll say one to my wife, right? I was like, back in the day, imagine Victorian ages, candlelight, the fire going, the clock ticking, right? Silence, right? Do you know what that kind of way of life? Now, I said it can't be good for you if your brain to comprehend what you're saying. Cat, funny story, horrific accident. Like, your brain must be going through so many changes, like at the same time. Like, nobody's saying anything because people are making a lot of money out of it.
Yes, I think so. And you see that as well. So I see it with the communication skills are being lost, I think, because people are spending more time. They're far more used to messaging. Take examples in class. I would have a student message me through Teams, even though they're sitting the other end of the room, rather than come and talk to me.
I know.
So communication styles have changed, and I'll adapt, but at the same time, we need to kind of bring that back.
Just having an argument.
Yes,
close to somebody.
So I think communication is key as well, and I think the skills are being lost that way.
And do you think then we're going to start having communication classes then? Because once again, when you go, so the family home, right? Insight into mine. My wee boy, he's got his tablet. He likes to play football. My little girl's cheerleading. Everyone will know that. I say it all the time. But at the same time, sometimes you want to bring his tablet to the table, and that's a problem. And I'm like, I try to at least get us around the table to have food
for dinner.
Right.
Exactly.
Because but then sometimes I've seen him and he's had his breakfast and he's got his pad, and it's like it's not good.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So
I think that there has to be a fine balance, and as parents, that's a hard sort of I've kind of came across, because obviously my kids are older, so the oldest definitely didn't have access to a mobile phone until she went to secondary school, and then like her DS, things like that. Whereas obviously the youngest, although there's only 8 years, technology moved on quite a bit in those 8 years, but she still didn't get this kind of as much access, just because I've seen the way things were happening.
And what do you think about VR? Because if you think about it, if it's a spiral down, if technology is getting more advanced, right? If you've got VR now, then that's going to be even worse. You're sitting at a dinner table missing your mouth.
I think VR is one of these things that's brought up every maybe 5-10 years, and it's still been kind of touted as the next big thing. But we've been saying that for years now. It's been a long time coming, and I don't see it being a massive problem, just purely because affordability. For a start, if you don't have headsets, that sort of thing. But yeah, it is, I think it's a kind of specialist sort of thing. I've got VR, but only because I'm lecturing games. Therefore, I'm interested in that sort of side of things. But I don't know many folk around me who've got, unless they're, maybe a gamer, will have the VR. VR, it's been one of these things. I've seen it in TV shows. My favourite show is Red Dwarf. And the Gunmen of the Apocalypse, that's a VR episode, essentially, because they've got the headsets on. They're in.
You're talking as if I knew the episode name. I love Red Dwarf. I don't know. I'm definitely not. I'm not masterminding Red Dwarf.
People who are watching will know the episode. It was an award-winning episode. And they put the headsets on and they play as game characters.
Okay.
So that is a very early. I think that's a good example of. But nothing's changed. It's, you look at the headsets we've got now, they're actually like they were, and that was probably filmed late 80s, early 90s. Nothing's moved forward.
And nobody's really looking for that then, are they then?
No,
because I suppose that's what works is what they're looking for, eh?
Yeah.
So do you think then regarding esports as well, do you think esports has got a good way to help with communication? Do you think that could be
I definitely think esports and communication are, the communication skills are second to none in esports. I've seen some amazing things happen when I've been doing sort of the esports club. So we started 2018.
Yeah, tell me about your esports clubs.
We started 2018. It was the British esports competition, and we decided, let's go for it. We'll get a team in. But having 6 different students, they were playing Overwatch at the time. 6 students from different classes who didn't know each other, just playing this game, and they get into their stride over a couple of weeks. That sort of thing, it kind of moved on. We then went on to Rocket League, and then Valorant. The year I did Valorant, that was last year. That was an eye-opener because it was five students, completely different classes, so 5 individuals. The very first day they get in, on the computers, and as soon as the game went on, they were all the communication between the 5 of them was just something, I wish I could mark that. I wish I could mark students for that sort of thing.
And that's stuff they've been playing at home, so they're able to bring that same skills.
They bring that skills, they know how the game works, so they're able to, dish out the kind of commands, whatever, that sort of thing, left, right and centre, and the other folk just know what's happening. And I just sat there, I just watched because I was in complete awe of that.
Do you think parents would like to see their kids doing that as well and realising the skills they're actually doing?
I think they would, but it would be a sell because obviously playing games. But the communication side for me, that was a complete game changer watching that. And I just sat and watched because I thought, if we could get this, to actually replicate this in the classroom as well.
It's the confidence that they get from it as well,
and they win their first game quite comfortably. But I thought it was a good way to actually show the communication skills that you need to actually do these things.
And what do you think about the kind of the boys and girls kind of more the same? How would you see over your career? Would you say that you tell me, what has it been predominantly boys and then? Mostly
boys in my classes. It's probably about 90% boys.
Because I know you're an ambassador as well.
Yes, so I do like the Women in Games ambassador. And we do run events in the college. So the past couple of years we've been doing like an Ada Lovelace Day event, so female computer pioneer. And every year sort of they celebrate her birthday by having events for female students. And I've been getting the local high school to send their students up. And we do a variety of things, so we'll do like games, maybe a bit of cyber, bit of music, sort of sound production, that sort of stuff, just to kind of encourage them. But I see that the female students more going towards software rather than, so computing doesn't have an issue in our department. There's a really good mix in the classes, but games I think has still got that stigma as well.
It's a shame. Where do you think that stigma is still coming from then? Do you think it's between other peer groups within girls? Do you think
peer groups and the media? Media's always portrayed as a boys thing. I used to watch things like.
Do you think they've just got topics and they just have one thing that they think about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
their
it.
narrative.
But it's the way that it's portrayed as well. So I used to watch the shows that my daughters watch, things like iCarly and stuff, and the boys are always portrayed, in a certain kind of way. And I don't think that helps the situation either.
Do you think because things are the same like that, it helps them sell it because they don't want to rock the boat? They've always sold it like that. I think that's why they're frightened to change things.
Yeah, I think so. And it is taking, we need to try and change things and having events all the time. We're trying to make change, but it's slow going.
I mean, games like Valorant are good because Riot put a lot of effort into their female characters.
Yeah.
My wife plays it quite a lot, and there's a lot of girls that they do play the game.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a lot said in that.
I would think, yeah, they can relate to that. I would think so. I think part of it as well is obviously the sort of online side of gaming and being a woman as well, because obviously the way women are treated online is why I never get into online gaming to start with, because after seeing a lot, I was like, no, I'd rather just stick with my.
Oh, it's terrible. My wife, one day, I was sitting, just tell you a quick story, right? We were sitting playing games, my wife was top fragging, as you would in Valorant, right? She was doing well, and somebody said to her, get to the kitchen. So she put her headset down, put everything away, and walked out the room, right? And I thought, what's she doing? Right? And I could just hear folk in the headset going, oh, come back. I'm thinking, but she's just obviously,
yeah.
There's a lot more issues in that with people, how they're brought up and how they think, it's terrible, but.
And it's trying to change the mindsets as well, so that our students coming through, even if there isn't many women in the class, but it's getting them to that mindset of, we're all equal. But that starts.
That's been a big struggle between women.
It starts at an early age.
Yeah, I know.
It starts at primary school. I used to run events, and I'm hoping to kind of get them started. I used to run mini game jams, and we'd have them working in teams of 4, but we'd mix it up, boys and girls. And I've seen times where teachers were praising the boys for working with girls. That frustrated me.
Making it a thing.
Right off the bat. And it's like, they're that young, they're 10-year-old. They shouldn't be getting praised for working with a girl.
And I'll ask you something, and I'll jump in. But so if you talk about having, that goes back to the whole boys team, girls team. So right off the bat, we segregate, right? So within esports and gaming, though, there shouldn't be any kind of segregation because there's not like I don't want to go into it, but it's not like you're doing boxing where you've got a Mike Tyson size of guy against a girl, right?
Yeah.
Obviously you can tell then that's different, but with gaming there shouldn't be anything different in it.
I wouldn't.
We do it right off the bat, don't we?
Yeah.
But then somebody says the counter to that is girls maybe feel safer having that, but then there's other elements.
But again, if you're teaching this from an early age, there wouldn't be that. Girls would feel safe if you're teaching that from an early age. A part of my research was actually looking at, so they were working in pairs making their games, and I ended up with sort of 3 groups. So I had boys working together, girls, and then I had the mixed gender pairs. Mixed gender pairs actually made the best games because you had both sides.
Oh, you need that, especially at all companies or office environments. You need to have that mixture.
The girls made the nice arty things, and the boys got the programming side, but the mixed gender pairs made the best. That was a hard sell, right enough, because by the time you get to primary 7, the hormones are kicking in, and it's like, I don't want to work with a boy, I don't want to work with a girl, But making it natural from an early age, and I think that's something that's probably going to take a generation or two to kind of filter through. These things are generational, I think. There's probably things from when we were growing up and, trying to get rid.
But do you think companies, in a sense, make more money when they can have one full thing for guys and they can replicate it again for girls? So it might be an element of that as well, isn't there?
Yes.
There's no point, you can't make as much money if you've just got it all together.
No, if you've got it all together. No, that's it.
So that needs to stop.
Yeah, I mean, prime example, but it's not kind of thing. You know, you look at the pink tax. You know, I actually had this conversation with her. We're just talking about razors in general.
So what was the pink tax then?
You know, because things are essentially, you know, things like razors for women.
Oh, right, okay.
They're dearer than guys' ones.
Right,
you know?
Same thing.
Same thing. You know, big razors, men's, women, but the women's stuff is dear, and you're thinking it's the same thing. Just, you know,
but women
one's
pink.
pink.
My wife stole mine before. So, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's things like that. It just needs to be, there needs to be a shift, essentially.
And you also started the Scottish Games Education Network.
Yes.
So tell me a bit more about that.
That came from when I started working sort of full time in one place, and looking at teaching games fully and trying to get help from people. And I realised that, you know, there's a lot of places teaching and nobody spoke to each other. And I'm thinking, why are you guys
That's a problem.
Why are you guys not communicating with each other? So I decided, right, let's get things happening. Let's start talking. And I started off with the colleges that actually teach the SGEN games development. So the 6 of them in Scotland. But then kind of moved out to the universities as well. And it's just to get people sort of talking to each other, sharing stories, you know, because it turns out, you know, we've all got the same issues as well, you know, technology, software, that sort of thing, the IT department, that sort of thing. But we've also got we teach the same stuff as well. And it's to get sort of that balance between letting the universities know what colleges do and colleges knowing what uni does as well, because there's been some probably misconceptions or that sort of stuff.
The lines are getting a bit blurred, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's getting everybody on the same page, essentially. And obviously the past couple of years now we've had the Education Symposium. And the very first year that was having all those games lecturers in the one room, that was a big, for me, that was a big success, just having everybody in the same room and realising that we are on the same page, we're not against each other, you know, we are on the same page.
But why does it have to take somebody like yourself to think this is, why can other people not see that, Amanda? Why is it everything is so segregated? Why does it I have
no idea.
Yeah,
it's yeah.
Do you think people want to hold knowledge? Do you think some people want to hold the knowledge? Or
some people do. I think some do. But when I actually got speaking to folk, they were actually quite grateful. You know, that we've got other folk now to bounce ideas off of and make things happening. So we're just working towards just now obviously waiting on approval for the next iteration of the SGEN games, and hopefully that'll be sorted.
Yeah, because we spoke about that off camera before we started. Because that's I know I've seen you, you know, around in a sense, but that's the first time I kind of met with you then.
Yes.
So do you think there's been a lot of learnings from that first one then to the next one?
For that one,
have you been involved in this one?
I've not been involved in the esports. I've sort of stepped back a wee bit from the esports to focus on my sort of campaign with getting the SGEN games moving forward, because the games qualification is outdated now, things need change. So I've spent the past 2.5 years having to go through getting meetings, and eventually had to, you know, go down different routes of getting the government involved, that sort of stuff. And now we're at a point where hopefully things will be starting to happen soon, so that we will get a new games qualification.
And do you think that's a problem as well, how long it actually takes from you putting down in the paper, this is where we're at today, this is what I know today, and by the time it comes to the classroom,
yes, it's outdated. Yeah.
How can we solve that?
That is something that we'll look at when we finally do get round to the next, because I think
that's a problem throughout education, right?
It is.
Well, maybe more so in the technology side.
More so as well in the college sector, because we're bound by SQA, whereas the universities write their own. Although they've still got to get validated by folk, universities write their own. So they can probably get things done a bit faster, whereas SQA have processes, which is why it's taken me this long just to even bring that up and get things moving.
And is that why some companies also then are in colleges now, so they can teach?
Yes.
Right off the bat what they need.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you think more of that's going to happen? Do you think? Because recruitment for every company is going to be a big thing, and if they can actually,
on what it is, I mean, there is either, you know, them coming to us, or we go out to companies as well. to sort of train staff and things like that. It's a two-way sort of process, and that again, it depends on the subject area that you're in.
And so would you say how much then, because obviously you're a doctor now, right? How much weight do you think that helps with you when you're trying to get these things happening? Do you find it a bit easier now?
I'm finding it slightly a bit easier, yes. I've still had one or two roadblocks, and that's just doing certain things, and I put it down to it's just a gender thing I've faced, and I've had to ask male colleagues or folk that I know to actually...
Yeah, dig into that, please. So when you think that, do you know that? Is that your gut feeling? Or
that's my gut feeling, because I've tried to push for certain things for ages. And
do you think it's making other people look bad? Like they should be doing their job?
It might be, I don't know the extent. And then all of a sudden, if I then go down a different route and say, right, well, can you try and bring this up? Yeah. They bring it up, and all of a sudden, things are moving. And it's crazy. Yes, I know it shouldn't be happening, but it still does happen, and that is why I do kind of fight for things, because I've been on the receiving end.
So you've got fake accounts. You've got like Aaron Ford.
Even just A Ford, you know, sort of using that, and not having my full name as well.
It's still prehistoric when you think back in it.
Yeah,
we think we're so advanced.
Shouldn't have to, but it is still a kind of ongoing thing.
So tell me then, right? I usually start with these kind of questions, but tell me about young Amanda then. What got you into this? I usually start with that, but it's very interesting what you do, right? But you know,
I started. We get a Spectrum. Must have been about 83, 84, and you know, it was just like Pong. But then it wasn't until my brother got the SNES for his Christmas that year, and Super Mario Worlds came out, and so we played, me, him and his pal, we played that constantly, and it's the first game that I ever completed, because I found the last secret level before my brother.
Okay.
So that's from then, that got me hooked.
So you must have been fighting all the time for a shot.
Yes. Yeah, we were quite
good.
Okay. So we were taking turns, because it was his console after all. Then he kind of moved into the kind of computer side. So the first computer I got was an Amstrad, and it had the cartridges.
Okay.
And it had this cracking wee game called Burning Rubber. It's a racing game. Okay. Absolutely amazing. So that sort of side. But that was where I had my first experience of programming, because it came with a big giant book.
Okay.
So therefore, you know, in BASIC, you typed all these lines just to get, you know, tiny wee dots on the screen, and it's like, oh my god.
That must have set off a spark in your
head. That set off something. I did do computing in school. So that would have been, what, 93. I did my standard grade computing. That was interesting.
Yeah, so that's where my experience of paint would come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then.
Yes. So we'd actually, for standard grade computing, we used the micros. And then I think it was the year after, so it wasn't until we got into 5th year, they get Macs in the other room, and they get Windows machines as well. Because I remember during higher art, as a treat, we would get to go up and use paint, or if we had time, we could play Lemmings as well. Yeah, that was a certain kind of...
Was it the Macs remember the funky Macs, or like the different colours?
The colours, yes.
Yeah. That didn't last long, did it? But they were cool, weren't they?
Yeah. So that's kind of what got me in. And being sort of a maths was always my sort of problem solving. Kind of then went away from it for a wee while. Then get my first sort of home PC, probably when I was about 20. And the people that we bought it from had some games with it, and one of them was Championship Manager 97, 98.
Excellent.
Absolute cracking game. And that sort of got me back in to things again, and then we get the games consoles, Dreamcast, stuff like that.
Dreamcast as well.
Shenmue, Crazy Taxi, loved that, and I didn't mind my 4-year-old playing it at the time, because although it's a bit, you know,
So what was your first introduction to your kids then? Because I was very proud to let my son play Mario. It sounds weird,
Mario was probably the first introduction, but then it was the Dreamcast and Crazy Taxi.
That was a good game.
And then obviously the DS. Came into it.
And I have to ask you though, what do you still play games now?
Oh yes, I've got my favourite just now is Animal Crossing.
my wife loves that.
Love Animal Crossing. It's just
Is that
it's
on
a
the
nice. I've got it in the Switch. Yeah. Pokemon Go
Right.
as well. That's what
So I missed the Pokemon era.
I missed that as well, but I've kind of get back. But my oldest grew up with Pokemon,
there you go,
so
then.
I've kind of grew up with
Yeah.
that way.
That's like me and like Roblox, I suppose.
Yeah, you're getting that. So it's that sort of side of things. Yeah, I love platform games, and I'll still go back and play Mario as well because that's my man.
Oh, that's a good tattoo.
That's my man.
Oh, that's cool.
My first love.
Yeah. And even the Mario film's amazing.
I didn't.
Oh, don't. You know what? I thought I thought they'd done well. Considering how many things I've liked.
I'm not going to lie. I preferred the very first Mario movie.
Right. With Danny DeVito.
Yes.
Right, I'll leave it there, Amanda. It's been great to have you on. Just keep being you and doing what you're doing.
Thank
you're
you.
making a big impact and a big difference. So awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.